à la radio et à l'audio digital.
ConnectOnAir.com, radio and audio hub.
Connect on Air.
Connect on Air.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on ConnectOnAir.com and remote-radio-week.org.
Greetings from UNESCO office in Cambodia. My name is Mikel Aguirre and I'm project officer at UNESCO Phnom Penh office for the communication and information sector. In this session, I'm going to talk about how can we improve our reporting on gender-based violence, on violence against women and girls. Because the media plays a critical role in raising awareness on violence against women. It provides the visibility that it requires. It makes the public aware that this is really a social problem, a social issue that needs to be addressed through a multi-stakeholder approach. There are many actors that have a role to play in addressing violence against women. It can also mobilize the authorities, the politicians, to take the necessary steps and implement policies, legislation, mechanisms that protect women. Because violence against women is not something that belongs to the family, to the household. It's not something that belongs to this private sphere. It's not a private matter. It is something that should matter to everyone. It is a social problem. And as such, it requires political, social, educational, and legislative measures to address it. And the media has a very important role to play in bringing this issue from the private sphere to the public scene, to the public eye, to the public debate. I'm going to tell you one story. This is an event that happened in my country in the 1997, and it completely changed the way that violence against women is perceived, and it completely changed as well the way it is addressed from the duty bearers, from the state side. So 1997, her name is Ana Orante. She's a 60-year-old woman. She's been married to a man for over 40 years, and throughout all those years, she has suffered beating, psychological harassment, continuous bullying by her husband. This woman decides that it is enough. She goes to a TV show and she decides to tell her story. This is 1997. At that time, there was not very big awareness on violence against women in Spain. It was mostly something that belonged to the family, to the couple, but it was not discussed publicly. So Anna goes to the TV, she tells her story, and 2 weeks after, she gets killed by her husband. This story triggered like a whole social movement in Spain. Society was asking for justice. They were wondering why this woman suffered from this violence for so many years. Nothing happened to protect her. So the consciousness, the awareness of people completely changed after this event. And also the government decided to take measures. They reformed the penal code and they adopted one of the first ever action plans to end violence against women in the world. So we can see that the media has an enormous power in transforming topics such as this, in bringing them out from the houses, from the home, to the public sphere, and then take measures to adopt it. And how can the media better report on this? Well, the first step is really to be able to identify when are we talking about violence against women, because violence against women is not only when the husband beats the wife. Violence against women is also cyberbullying and online harassment of women and girls. It's also the early marriages or child marriages that we see in many countries. It is also female genital mutilation. It is also sexual harassment in the workplace, sexual assault and rape, obviously. Also the honor crimes, which happens still in many countries. Trafficking of person and smuggling of migrants, very often for sexual exploitation. Those are also cases of violence against women. And that's the first step for us to be able to better report on it. We need to be able to identify it, because we are talking all of these cases are the same issue. And how can we report better on it? Well, some very simple recommendations is like talking about it, because this doesn't belong, as we were saying, to the private sphere. It's a public health issue, it's a social issue, it's a political issue. So having it present in the media is very important. Also keeping track of how many cases of violence against women have been recorded in the country during, let's say, a period of 1 year. Some countries, they have like their own tracking monitoring system. And when there is no one, it is important that the media keeps track of this, because putting one case in context of many more cases, that way we really give it the dimension that it really has. And we show that it's not an isolated case, that is a social issue that needs to be addressed from the roots. We also need to pay attention to the headings, to the words that we use when we report on it. I say this because very often we tend to do it from a very male perspective and a more very patriarchal perspective. The other day I was reading a headline in a newspaper in Spain where it said that a woman had been raped by 3 minors. But the headline didn't say that. It's like the woman that was raped, which was drunk, was raped by 3 guys. So by including these words, like, why do we care if she was drunk or not? That headline kind of blames the victim somehow for what happened to her, when the blame should 100% be on the attackers, on the harassers, on those who committed the crime. We also need to use the data that is in our hands, analyze statistics, surveys, so that we can show that this is really a social issue and not something that happens in isolation. Also, we need to reject the language that lectures or that judges the victim. This happens very often when informing, when reporting about violence against women. There is always a judgment, a moral judgment on it that blames the victim. The victims also, they have been victim once, so we have to be careful when reporting about them. We shouldn't victimize them again through our stories and through our reporting. We should portray them as survivors. They have been already a victim, so we should empower them by mentioning that a survivor from violence against women now is doing this or that. So the language is really critical. And then we need to provide enough context so that we don't allow judgment and putting all these traditional values in interpreting the information that we are providing. And it is important as well, if there are mechanisms available in the country, if there are support organizations or hotlines that are providing support to women that are going through episodes of violence against them, it is important to provide the public with this information so that they know that they can reach out, that they are not alone, and that there are some safety mechanisms that can somehow protect them. And if you would like to learn more about this topic and how to better report on cases of violence against women, I will highly recommend you to download the UNESCO Manual for Journalists, Reporting on Violence Against Women and Girls, a handbook for journalists. It's available in UNESCO website, and you can download it for free. It's in English, in French, in Spanish, and in some other languages. Thank you very much.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Get ready for a week devoted to helping radio stations broadcast remotely. Live on connectonair.com and remote-radio-week.org.
Connect on Air.
UNESCO Remote Radio Week 2021. Live on connectonair.com